Okay, I got to teach this principle. A kind of a strong rant here for a minute. Um, if you have a garden plot and you don't do anything with your garden, does it just stay bare? No, it grows weeds, right? So weeds are the default. And you look at almost anything in life, there's a default. And like you don't have to do anything. You don't have to plant seeds for weeds. They just happen. So, and I want you to write this down. I really want to chew on this. Oppositional defiance is the standard default for teens, right? If we don't deliberately really work on it hard, then the natural default will be oppositional defiance, right? That's just going to be the standard. That's what will happen if we're not working on it really deliberately. Now, I'm not saying that if you're like, wait, I've been working my butt off, like I've been working, I didn't do nothing, but that's the default setting, and so it's just like weeds are going to pop up. Your kids are going to become oppositional and defiant. That's the standard. In fact,
growing up,
when you start really studying the brain of a teenager, they're going to start creating distance from you. That's how they start learning independence. And so they just want to create distance. And you're like, oh, you start taking it personally. It's hard. But the way around that, as they still move towards independence, is more connection, more collaboration, more making things attractive so they want to choose the good things. They want to spend time with you. They want to ask you advice. They want your influence still. And so you work around the natural thing that's happening of being oppositional and sometimes defiant. You're teaching them the inner compass. You're teaching them respect. You're increasing the connection. And so you can still have this amazing relationship, and your teens make great, great decisions as they're becoming more independent.
But I am going to add, because this is sometimes necessary. At times, we are going to have to practice intervention. If our children and our teens have gotten to a point where they are so we're using this just because it came up, oppositionally defiant, that they don't listen and they're headed in a dangerous direction, it is our duty as their parents to intervene. Greg and I, when we were first married, I don't even know where or how we came up with this and why we thought of it, but we came up with what we termed our Mount Kilimanjaro principle. I don't know how we got it, but what it meant to us, because Greg was actually a high school teacher when we got married, and he was working with teenagers. And before we ever had any children, well, we actually adopted our first, but before we had any kids, we were a foster parent to a teenage girl. We were literally in our 20s, so I don't know what we thought we knew about raising a teenager. But we always said if our kids ever got into any trouble, we would literally move to Mount Kilimanjaro to raise them there. And I mean, it sounds so silly now, but the principle to us was we were willing to do whatever it took to save our kids, even if that meant moving to Mount Kilimanjaro, right? We were willing to intervene. We were willing to do drastic things, to move, to change jobs, to change locations, to change strategies, to whatever. Like, there were no limits to what we were willing to do to save our kids from worst case scenarios, right? Now, we don't call it that anymore because we realize that's silly. You can't live on Mount Kilimanjaro. Our kids.
Except having been, we could live on the foothills. It was
okay. The foothills are great, but you can't actually live there. But we still have that philosophy. We are willing to do whatever it takes. And so that's why these steps are so important as we dig down into the layers to realize the ultimate cause of the misbehavior, or whatever you want to call it. We have to be willing, if necessary. Now, ideally, we're taking these gentle, loving, inviting actions. We're building relationships of trust. We're using persuasion. We're all of that. But if that's not working, our duty is to intervene, not in a way that breaks trust, but in a way that creates the necessary pattern interrupt. And that's like a specific psychology term, because what happens to all of us is we get stuck in these patterns. All of our children are in patterns. They're patterns of waking up, they're patterns of going to sleep, the patterns of who they're interacting with on a daily basis. And all of those patterns are creating neural networks in their brain that are getting strengthened, and they're creating these very strong habits and ways of thinking and ways of being and doing things. A pattern interrupt interrupts all of that. You take them out of their environment and put them into something new, and it forces the brain to think in new ways. So the whole Mount Kilimanjaro idea is simply a major pattern interrupt. You have to be willing to do pattern interrupts, whatever that requires for you, and only you can really know that with your spouse's help. Is that moving? Is that changing schools? Is that homeschooling? Is that changing friends? Is that whatever? Be willing to do that in order to help save your children from themselves sometimes. Okay, that was all. That was my little rant on that. Good stuff. Next we're going to continue with level 1 and the physiology and physical habits. We're going to talk about nutrition, how important that is. And then we're also going to talk about, of course, movement and like getting outside. But I want you to walk away from tonight, because again, this isn't like overhauling everything in your whole life. I want you to focus on making 1% improvements. So each week, as we talk about something, I want you to think of like, what's my 1% improvement takeaway from this session, right? So think about that, write it down, and then think about how this coming week you can work on implementing that 1% improvement. And it might be something as simple as we're going to have a story time at night, or we're going to dim the lights, turn on the lamps at nighttime. Or maybe it's like, I'm going to be figuring out what the underlying cause of some behavioral issues are. Whatever it is, just think about what's your takeaway and what are you going to work on.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for caring. Great session. I hope you got a ton of value from it. Yeah. So just like Rachel's saying, do something this week to improve sleeping. It's a game changer. It's really, really powerful. If you on the Formidable Family Man podcast, I interviewed my good friend. His name's Tom Ludlow. He's a sleep expert. That episode will blow your mind. It is so crazy good. So the Formidable Family Man podcast with Tom Ludlow about sleep. It was absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, love you guys. Have a wonderful week. Go love on your kids right now. Go give them a big hug and kiss. And lean in. Have a great week. Love you guys. Reach upward.